I've been carrying a concealed firearm for many, many decades, well before the Kydex revolution around the turn of the century. But until recently, all of my leather gear, holsters, belts, and so forth, has all been commercial, off-the-shelf stuff. This review is about some custom leather that I had made by One in the Chamber down in Toledo, Ohio, and I'll give you a link to that down in the description shortly. Before we go any farther, I want to thank Ann Arbor Arms for their support of Riders Range. Ann Arbor Arms is a 5-star range and training facility, and they can be found at AnnArborArms.com. And because of all the time I've spent with leather over the many decades, I have a particular fondness for leather. I like the appearance, I like the comfort, I like the flexibility. I happen to come across oneinthechamber.com. It's actually oneinthechambergear.com. On a Facebook post, and I was attracted by the unique look of the holster, and particularly the small medallion that is on some of the holsters that they show up on their webpage. And I was also intrigued by the fact that it's a very small business that's veteran owned. And I've never had a custom in the more than 40 years I've been carrying concealed, and certainly a lot of carrying on duty as well in uniform. But I was attracted by what I saw on the sites. I visited their website, and I sent an email off to the owner, George Oliger, and told him basically what I was looking for. And we eventually corresponded, not just by email but also over the phone, discussed what I wanted, and I wanted to include a holster specifically for my everyday carry gun, my Dan Wesson ECO. I also wanted one for my Kimbers that are pro size or commander size, that each have an RMR on them, and it's kind of hard to find a holster for those also. And I also wanted the mini medallion for my last law enforcement department, as well as one for the outfit I served with in the Navy. George said he could do it, and he and I met eventually in Toledo. I told him I also wanted a magazine carrier that would hold my Phoenix PD-35 flashlight. Again, trying to find a mag flashlight combination that will fit a specific light is almost impossible. Shortly after working it out with George as to the holsters and the belts and the mag carrier that I wanted and the design that I wanted, I happened to come into possession of a Staccato C. And finding a leather holster for the Staccato is really tough because of the shape of the trigger guard and the rail. There were a couple of really high-end companies out there that would make them. I was looking for something a little more affordable. And I got a hold of George, and even though he didn't have a mold or a blue gun for the Staccato C, he said he could make it work. So I sent him the information on the gun, and lo and behold, a few weeks later, I picked up the holster for the Dan Wesson ECO, the mag pouch and light holder, the belt, the holster for the Kimber. Oh, by the way, there's no Kimber in it because the slides for both of my Kimbers with RMRs have been returned to the mothership for warranty work. And he also made one for the Staccato C. They're all really good quality holsters. I am very, very pleased with the way they're put together. These appear to be about 8 to 9 ounce leather, which is typical for most holster manufacturers nowadays. You get much heavier than that. They're hard to mold right and hard to stitch. They're about the same weight as the holster that I've been carrying for a long time, the holster and mag pouch, my good old Galco standbys. And actually they seem to be just a little thicker than the leather for the one Kimber holster I got that's actually made by DeSantis, that I got specifically for the Kimbers with the RMR. That's probably 8 ounce at best, maybe even 7, but I could be wrong on that. The quality on all of these holsters is good, but I really like the hand detailed attention on the stuff from One in the Chamber. Now, a couple of things I will mention on that. Even though I did have the sweat shield made on all the holsters, I got kind of mixed feelings about that. But if I'm carrying next to a T-shirt, there's some advantages to that. Not perfect for getting a good solid grip on the gun, but so far it hasn't interfered with any drawing of the firearm. I will mention though that the holsters by One in the Chamber, they fit nicely. The guns don't come out. I mean, I can shake this gun upside down all day long and that gun's not going to come out of there. Same thing with the ECO. but they're not hand boned or pressure molded quite as tightly as the DeSantis or as the Galco. Is that a deal breaker? No. Is that necessary for retention? Nah. It looks nice, but again, sometimes the smooth look, not having that hand boning, sometimes it flows a little better. Is it really necessary? Not so much. The holsters that I saw by one in the chamber that had the pins or medallions on them, I wanted something with a little narrower profile. And instead of having the pins mounted up here where George had them on the others, we agreed on putting them down here where they're a little bit more out of the way, not going to be as likely to snag on something if you bump into it. And also the pins that I had were actually pins. The other medallions that he had are Chicago screw, and he had to take the pin off and actually find a way to attach a Chicago screw to the back of the pin. And so far these have not come loose. In fact, I tried taking one off, and I believe he's got some good Loctite or some other thread locker on it, so they're not coming off. And again, the mag and flashlight holster or holder fits absolutely perfectly, does the job extremely well. Very, very happy with them. All of these are double stitched where they're important, where you really need the security. Now, granted, on the Galco you got some extra double stitching, but that's not in an area where it's really needed. George has the double stitching right where it belongs, and again, it's quality stitching. I'm guessing it was machine stitched as opposed to hand stitched, but very, very nicely done. The belt itself is also a double thickness belt, and the flap that goes around the back to be held by the Chicago screws is only single thickness, but again, that's how a lot of good quality belts are made anyway. You certainly don't need the extra material of having the double thickness wrap around under the buckle. Again, Chicago screws to hold it together. Double stitching on the belt at my request. It's a nice touch to have the stitching on the belt keeper also. And again, just very nicely done. And this belt is nice and rigid, and I've been wearing it off and on for several months now. Been very comfortable with it. But you compare the rigidity of the one in the chamber belt versus the Galco belt. Granted, this one is well worn over many years. It's a thicker belt. It's a stiffer belt, and it definitely is. Holds the holster, holding a 1911, even a steel frame 1911 commander size, fully loaded, and a magazine pouch and the flashlight all day long without any discomfort, any slippage, any movement. Just very, very nicely fit, nicely done. So what about price on George's? Now, George doesn't list prices on his website. He says that he wants to work with each individual and come up with a custom design for them and then price that accordingly. And I found that his prices are every bit as competitive as Galco and DeSantis and the other major manufacturers. I wasn't at all displeased with the price he came up with. Turnaround time was less than 8 weeks, and again, he'll take it by mail. I fortunately live close enough so that it wasn't that far of a drive to stop down and drop everything off and pick everything up from him and exchange the funds. One other thing about this particular belt, if you notice, most leather belts have the hole spacing at 3/4 of an inch. Excuse me, at 1 inch. I had these made at 3/4, and if you saw my video when I'm looking at the Core Essentials gun belt and the NexBelt EDC belt, you know that I would like adjustability. Now those are 1/4 inch. Kind of hard to get 1/4 inch out of this traditional buckle with holes in the belt, but George did put these at my request at 3/4 of an inch, and that's worked out quite well. Been very, very happy with that. Now you may ask about the significance of the black belt or black leather in general with orange stitching. Well, if you're into motorcycles at all, you can answer that question on your own. So quality, custom, personal contact. Really happy with dealing with oneinthechambergear.com, and I'm going to do business with them again. I really like the personal service and the whole philosophy of the company. If you like this video, by all means, please subscribe and We're going to try to get a new video up every week. The next video up will be the introduction to the Great Affordable 1911 series, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be following that introduction, it'll be a 22-part series. It's not going to be 22 straight. I'll interrupt it with some other videos along the line, but that's going to be comparing a number of different 1911s, all the way from full-size 45s down to the subcompact 9mm, and even a few 1911 wannabes somewhere along the line. So again, I appreciate a thumbs up. Please subscribe, and once again, thank you for visiting Riders Range.